Hello and welcome to another edition of the Kings of Anglia Ipswich Town podcast. My name is Andy Warren and today I'm joined by my right-hand man, my partner in crime, my work husband, my one, my only, Stuart Watson, and he's smiling as well. How are you, mate?
I'm fine, thank you, mate. That was a lovely little intro. Nice to see you.
That's just the two of us, isn't it? Where is everybody?
I don't know. I'm at my nan's house. If anyone's watching this on video, if we do put it out as a video, that's why the backdrop's changed today. Come and give her a bit of company today while I'm working.
Oh, does she fancy it? Has she got any strong opinions on League One football or anything like that? Has she got anything to bring to the party?
I don't think there's anything she'll want to add to this. She's having a little doze in the front room at the moment, so I won't disturb her. But she does follow our work, mainly, I think, just out of sympathy for me.
She would be in the no other business category, would she? If we from the very off on all of this. And to be fair, a little doze sounds great, doesn't it? In reality, you could easily get that little doze in during Ipswich Town games at the moment. We're not here to completely dissect another 0-0 draw, the latest coming against AFC Wimbledon at the weekend, but it would be remiss of us if we didn't note it. Where do we start with that then, Stu? Should we talk about 10 hours without a goal, what that means, find a deeper meaning in all of that? Just need the season to be done, don't we?
Yeah, I haven't really got a huge amount to add to what we've already discussed. They're done. The players are done. They know they're done. The manager knows they're done. The manager doesn't like them. They don't like the manager. We've been saying it for a long time now. For these last few games are doing nobody any favours at all. Just needs to be over now. We just need to limp over the line and wait for this exciting summer of change to come.
Stick a fork in Ipswich Town. They're done because midweek results. They're in 12th now. 7 points from the playoffs. Ipswich have 3 to play. Some of the other teams have 2. Not mathematically done, but it's pretty much done, isn't it? And it has been done. For a little while. 3 games for Ipswich, Swindon, Shrewsbury, Fleetwood feel a bit dead rubbery, don't they? But all around them, things are heating up a little bit. Hull are up. They're gone from League One. Peterborough last night looked like they'd got their job done, but didn't. So they have to go again at the weekend to get theirs. The playoffs beneath them. Sunderland have kind of having a bit of a mini meltdown. Wickham are down from the Championship, so we'll be seeing them again next year. Sheffield Wednesday nearly done as well. They'll be joining them almost certainly. Then it's a little scrap between Derby and Rotherham for the final place. And in League Two, I think it was last night, Cheltenham are up, which is a great achievement for them. Have you ever been to Cheltenham? That's not a place I've ever been to watch football.
I have. It's the first ever game of professional football I covered was at Cheltenham, so I'll always have a little soft spot for a trip there. It was a Colchester game. Anthony Wordsworth, a very young Anthony Wordsworth, scored, I think, a brace in that game. He obviously went on to play very briefly for Ipswich. So, yes, I have done that one.
We could reminisce heavily about that when that game comes around next season. But it's such a shame, isn't it, that from the position Ipswich we're in, we're talking about all this stuff happening around them. They're just not a factor. Not a factor in this at all, are they? How, without going too deep into it, it's pretty miserable, isn't it, to be at the business end of the season and once again have no influence on what's going on.
Yeah, people will talk about Cook's record, and I guess we'll probably go into the Paul Cook debate a little bit deeper once these next few games are out the way. But two wins in 13, people are starting to maybe look at him a little bit. Bottom line is he was brought in at the time he was to breathe life into a promotion push. But I don't think we should be rewriting history here and saying that they've gone massively backwards since he's arrived. They weren't great under Paul Lambert. Let's not forget how poor it was prior to Paul Cook's arrival and how few shots on goal they were having throughout the whole of this season, not just recently. Going forward has been the issue, clearly. Not only taking chances, but creating chances. I think going right back to November time, I wrote about them looking like a bang average mid-table League One side, and that ultimately is where they're going to end up. So strange old times. It must be a very odd atmosphere at the club at the moment with people, both players and off-field staff, all wondering what lies ahead for their futures. So it's not going to make for a particularly good short-term picture. But once that sort of little painful transitional process is hopefully swift and quick and is all out the way, then the fun starts and the rebuild happens.
I think you're right. I think I think there probably will be a deeper Paul Cook chat at some point once this season's out the way. But in terms of the current season, it's done. We're almost certain. And about an hour ago, what feels like kind of the starting pistol on 2021-22 got fired with Ipswich Town releasing their season ticket details, which these days also include refund options for the second year in a row on how people can be refunded. That's not being refunded because the football's been bad. It's been refunded because people have not been able to attend the games. But they were out an hour ago. Stu, are you able to quickly kind of run us through, for anyone who hasn't seen by the time they're looking for these, just what the headline figures are from those season ticket renewals?
Yeah, I'll try my best. I've just written this up for the web and the paper. The refund option is essentially you get a full refund on your season ticket for this season, less the charge of £10 per game for your iFollow pass, which obviously 10 times 23 games is £230. So whatever you paid for your season ticket last year, you'll get that back minus £230. In terms of next season's season tickets, it's frozen. It's frozen whether you had one this season or from the season before. So understandably, they kind of got why. I think they had 12,000 season tickets roughly for the first season in League One. 3,000 or so of those chose not to renew, understandably, with the global pandemic. I'm surprised that it wasn't more, to be quite honest. So anyone who had a season ticket either this season or the previous season will get take advantage of frozen season ticket prices, which this always splits people. There's always going to be some that want more, and you're not going to please everybody. But I think in the grand scheme of things, that's a pretty fair balance is my first instinct on that. It's worth saying also that anyone that had a season ticket holder under 19 this season gets a free one next year as well. So ultimately, this is going to cost the club in the region of about £1 million by the time they've paid out these refunds and given away some junior tickets for this season, which is a chunk of money during a time where money has been tight.
It's hard for us to sit and talk about these because every season ticket holder will have their own opinion on it and their own circumstances. We're obviously not season ticket holders, so it's hard for us to really talk about it, I think. But what do you make of this as an offering? It seems okay to me. I think there obviously would have been some people that were perhaps under the new ownership expecting crazy kind of Bradford Huddersfield-esque £149, 250 quid a ticket offers and things like that. It hasn't worked out like that, but there are reasons for that, aren't there? And reasons that could even impact kind of on pitch performance, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I think even we were talking a few weeks back. It'd be a real statement from the new owners that are backed by a lot of money that they can afford to slash prices but income is very important, and obviously the salary cap has been scrapped, but Ipswich will now slide back into their League One's version of financial fair play, which is the salary cost management protocol.
Nailed it.
Nailed it, thank you. And so in the first year after relegation from the Championship, they were given a bit of breathing room, so they were allowed to spend 75% of annual turnover on wages. In year one, obviously that's gone now. So next season you're into 60% of annual turnover on wages, and a big part of income is obviously season tickets and gate receipts. So they can't afford to completely give them away because it will impact on what Paul Cook can spend on wages this summer. So it's a balancing act between rewarding fans, especially the loyal fans, 9,000 of whom who have had season tickets during a season where they can't use them. And I do get you're not going to please everyone. And if you're in a family of four that have all effectively been charged £10 each to watch the games on iFollow when you could have all been huddled around the same screen every week. You're not going to please everybody. And as you rightly say, it's very hard for us to talk about this because we're not season ticket holders ourselves. And I know everyone's been affected differently by COVID and money has been tight. But I think if I'd have had a season ticket this year, I'd have probably bought one on the understanding that we were living in a slightly strange world and I wasn't going to be getting full value for it. And so people had that choice. They could have cancelled them along the way this season. Overall, I think it's a decent balance that they've struck.
I think the most eye-catching part of it for me was the accompanying 3.5-minute video that they put out with it, which is everything you want. It's got dramatic music, it's got quotes going over the top, it's got videos of fans celebrating, passionate fans in the crowd. This season's going to be a game changer. They call it, obviously, in a nod to the new owners. That got me going a little bit and just reminded me that hopefully we're not too many months away from having proper crowds in proper football stadiums for proper football matches again. That day can't come soon enough, can it?
No. We've had a new era. This one is called The Next Chapter. As you say, there was the nod to a game changer. With voiceovers from the various interviews we've heard from Brett Johnson. Mark Detmer, we heard his voice for the first time on there. He's only done a piece with the club so far, which we've only seen in a written format, but they used a few of his quotes from an audio basis on there. Berke Bakai, Paul Cook. So I had a few goosebumps watching that, and certainly whets the appetite for the season ahead. So done a good job on that, obviously, but we've said that before, haven't we? Sat there in the summer thinking next year's going to be the one. That's football for you. You hit the reset button, no matter how bad it is. Every time we convince ourselves it could be different next year.
Every single time, and there's little markers in the sand as well. Season tickets, yep, it's going to be different. Out comes the promotional video, yep, it's going to be different. Kit launch, that's a real trigger for me. Get the new kit out there. And that's me officially turned on for next season. Officially turned on. Just realised what I
turned on when squad numbers come out, my friend. That's when.
Well, that's beyond turned on when that happens. Bring out a new font for the back of shirts. That gets me going. And by the time we get to a mid-July pre-season friendly at Hampton and Richmond, or the Abbey Stadium in Cambridge, absolutely gagging for it. So, it doesn't take much to turn the page, does it? The meat of today's podcast is also going to be looking at next season. This morning we published a very long list of football players. It was just a list of football players playing for League One teams who are out of contract this summer. We know Paul Cook's going to have a thorough rebuild, and they won't all be League One free agents, I'm sure. But as a starting point for potentially looking at players that Ipswich may look to bring in this summer, we thought it might be fun to go through that list and pick out a few each and fire them backwards and forwards at each other, and just discuss a few players who are available this summer that might fit into what Paul Cook's after and fill a few holes at Ipswich Town at the moment. So does that sound fun, Stuart Watson?
That sounds fun to me. The more we can keep away from recent results, the better. So let's do it. I've got a few names here.
Before we start, I put that list together, and then at about 11 o'clock last night, I had to remove a name from that list because I saw that he had his contract renewed, and it made me quite sad because he's one that I would have I'd have quite fancied actually. It was Alex Gorin at Oxford. A sort of a ball-winning midfielder who breaks up play and lets others around him get going and play football. He's had his contract renewed by Oxford, but he would have been one that I think could have really done a job for Paul Cook. Not technically the best footballer you're going to find, but something that Ipswich just haven't had, a proper destroyer of a midfielder. But sadly, he's off the table, so he doesn't count towards this game. But I'll let you serve, Stuart Watson. New balls, please. Stuart Watson, what you got?
Okay, I'll start. Someone that won't need a huge introduction to Ipswich Town fans is Callum Connolly, who is still only 23 years old, had his loan spell in the Championship with Ipswich. He's currently on loan at Fleetwood. Obviously scored that very inventive flicked backwards header against Ipswich recently. Since he's left Ipswich, I think we've seen him in virtually every position for the various teams that he's gone on to play for. So he's versatile. Still only 23, and his 3-year contract at Everton expires in the summer, I believe. So Cook's after players that are combative, competitive. He'll want to work with a tight-knit, small squad. So I think that versatility would come into play. He knows Ipswich. He'll know the area. From what I gather, he enjoyed it down here. So he'd be one I'm looking for, definitely.
What position are you signing him to play? Because, like you say, you're right. We've seen him play centre back, central midfield, both full back positions. Which one of them would you be playing him in?
That's a good point. That's a very good point. Possibly at centre half. But he could easily play one of those two sitting midfield positions. Yeah, either of those, to be quite honest.
Well, that's where we saw him with Fleetwood, wasn't it? Recently, playing at centre half. He came to Ipswich as a right back, didn't he? And played about 45 minutes at right back, and ended up being one of their best players that season in central midfield. So he certainly got the versatility there. Has he played with under Cook before?
Yeah, I think he had a brief spell at Wigan. Didn't play a huge number of games during that spell at Wigan, so he'll be one that Cook's aware of as well.
I like it. Okay, I'll give you a tick on that one. My first one's going to be a player that we've seen fairly recently against Ipswich, actually. Well, really recently at the weekend, and then 10 days prior to that as well. Joe Pigott at Wimbledon. Physical, big, solid on the ball, and knows where the goal is, although maybe I wouldn't let him take penalties, judging by his effort at Portman Road at the weekend. But he's maybe something that the Ipswich haven't got. He's out of contract this summer. I think Wimbledon would like to keep him, but you would think that Ipswich should, if they wanted him, be able to overpower Wimbledon in a sort of a chase for him. What have you made of him over the last couple of games where we've seen him?
Yeah, liked him, stood out. Obviously partnered Palmer in a big man partnership quite well in the first game. Led the line as a kind of a lone striker very well in the game last weekend. Looked to be a cut above anything Ipswich had sort of up front over the course of those two games. Hungry, a player that's sort of on the up. So yeah, I definitely would be one I'd be looking at. I think there'll be Championship interested in him. You certainly be able to prize him away from Wimbledon, but whether there is interest higher up the chain that makes that one difficult remains to be seen. But like him, good shout.
He's a bit older than I thought he was. He's 27, but has got kind of a good non-league background behind him. 19 goals this season. He'd be worth a shot for me. Your shot, sir.
Well, I'll go down the striker route then and give you an alternative to Pigott, and I've got Chuks Aneke written down here. 27, the same as Pigott. Charlton.
Good age.
Absolutely, yeah, great age. He absolutely bullied Luke Wolfenden in the game at Portman Road last November time when Charlton won 2-0, 6'3", won so many towering flick-ons that day. He's another one who's out of contract in the summer. So I don't know what his situation will be with Charlton. Obviously depends what happens with them at the end of the season, whether they'll want him, whether there'll be higher interest. But if we're looking at sort of physical frontman types that can kind of lead the line in that 4-2-3-1, he'd be one on the list for me.
I'd be happy. Is he ex Arsenal as a kid? I think he was, wasn't he?
Yes.
We've seen him before at MK Dons as well, haven't we?
Yeah, he scored a lot of goals, didn't he, when they got promoted from League Two?
Yeah, there's some good names on this list. This isn't exclusively where Ipswich are going to be shopping or anything like that, I'm sure. But in terms of players being available, I think there are certainly certainly some they could pick up from here. I'm going to change position on the field a little bit and go back to another player that splits opinion, has worn an Ipswich shirt before, and is coming around to being a free agent again. And I've got Luke Garbett on my list, who obviously was here last season, started like a train, tailed off, ultimately ended up at Blackpool. Not the move he thought he was going to get, but he's had a decent season there. He's kind of come into goal scoring form at a time where Blackpool are surging. They're likely to be in the playoffs, but I think he could be open to a move somewhere else if they don't make it to the Championship. And I think while he's not quite Kane Vincent-Young, he's not necessarily the marauding fullback that Paul Cook wants. He does like to play high up the pitch. Cook wants his fullbacks to play almost as wingers, and we saw Luke Garbett's best football playing sort of wide midfield for Paul Lambert. So I wouldn't be against Mr. Garbett getting another phone call under a new manager this summer.
Play the left wing role rather than the left back role.
No, I'd sign him to play left back because of what Cook what he wants his left back to do. I'm not sure. I'm not sure I like him as an out and out winger.
You don't want Gwion Edwards on set pieces though, Andy.
Is it still in the air? Are those balls still flying? We're all aware that they've been out for dinner in London this week, I'm sure. Many people saying that Gwion was there searching for the ball that's still flying from corners and free kicks. I'd take Luke Garbett over Gwion on corners and free kicks, if I'm completely honest. But I know this one won't be for everybody. But what would you say to Luke Garbett?
I'm never quite sure. I don't know, because I was he tailed off towards the end of his time at Ipswich. The set pieces start to dry up a little bit, sort of joking aside. I thought he was much better in that left wing position than left back. Defensively, he had a few moments, didn't he? There was one game where he tried to sort of play his way out of danger at the back. Yeah, that would be a question mark for me, Luke Garbett. But I can see where you're coming from in terms of what Cook wants from his fullbacks, and that might suit his style of play a little bit more, kind of a forward-thinking left back. I've got another left back for you if you want an alternative.
Yes, please.
I've got Connor Ogilvie written down from Gillingham.
Yeah,
25, ex-Tottenham kid, England youth team, international growing up. He's now rattled out 4 seasons in League One with Gillingham, who have proven themselves year after year to be a competitive side in this division. He scored 5 goals this season, including a goal of the season contender, an outrageous volley from outside the box against Charlton. So scored 5 goals from left back. And just reading some quotes from Steve Evans about him, the whole dressing room loves Connor. He's the first in and the last away. He lives and breathes football. So if we're looking for if character and personality is going to be high in the attributes wanted this summer, he seems to be one that would tick the box. Maybe not as sexy a name as someone like Luke Garbett, but if you're looking for character and experience at this level, decent age, got a bit of pedigree, I'll chuck him in the mix.
Am I right in saying Josh Harrop played on the right of midfield when Paul Cook took Ipswich to Gillingham a few weeks ago? And Ogilvie, he almost stopped Harrop from kicking the ball from the entire game. I think that as much as that's going to be on Josh Harrop as potentially on Ogilvie's defending, but he certainly played well in that game, didn't he? From memory.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, and he can play centre half as well. So there's another little versatility box there.
Do you want another left back?
Do it.
Yeah, left back special. Josh Ruffles of Oxford United. I think he's 26, 27. Again, good age. These players are all in a certain age bracket, aren't they, Stu? And we've spoken before about lacking maybe players of this particular age. But here we are, a 27-year-old. He can get up and down, good on the ball. Just a solid League One left back that I've liked when I've seen him. They need a left back, don't they?
I think Ipswich were having a little look at him last summer. From what we've heard as well, was one that was on the long list that Paul Lambert had. So it's another good shout for left back. Shall I rattle on? Shall we carry on?
Yep, keep going. What more have you got?
Okay. Let's go a bit further up the pitch, because that's where people are excited, and that's where Ipswich needs some improvement. I've got Ryan Williams written down, the Australian attacking midfielder / winger at Portsmouth. There's a number of players out of contract at Portsmouth. Again, could be dependent on whether they go up or don't go up as to who they want to keep and who they try to keep. Ipswich fans might remember him playing very well in the game against Portsmouth recently. Danny Cowley, after the game, was talking about his stats, his fitness stats in training and across the games, being incredible work rate and attitude were Danny Cowley's comments about him. He's played in the Championship before with both Barnsley and Rotherham, so has got that sort of higher level experience there as well. And again, 27 years of age, so sort of prime years, which is we've talked about Ipswich having players that their experienced players have probably got their best days behind them, and their younger players aren't quite to the level where they can carry everybody else and be the go-to players that Paul Cook has called for. So they definitely need to plug that gap in terms of age group this summer.
I don't know about you. I didn't go through this list looking for players of this age. I simply went through it, picked out some names that I've enjoyed watching, and gone with them. But they do all fall in the age bracket that we're talking about here, pretty much. Which really does feel important, actually, of getting players that know the league, ready to go, and aren't too much of a project. Saying that, my next one maybe is a little bit of a project. He's probably the one on this list that's maybe that bit more raw, that need a bit more work. But we've seen him do the thing that he absolutely excels at this season. That's Scott Twine, the young lad at Swindon, who I'm sure you remember scored that absolute screamer at Portman Road in January. Spent the first half of the season at Newport, did it a lot there, 6 or 7 goals, most of them really good outside the box efforts there. He's out of contract this summer. Swindon would like to keep him, but it doesn't look like they're going to. There's going to be offers from probably the Championship and the top end of League One for him, especially now they've dropped into League Two. He's kind of he's a forward, really, can play off the strikers, can play a bit wide as well. But he's that little bit younger. I think is he 20? Let me just look that up.
It's a good shout, and you talk about, again, he's probably another one that will have bottom end Championship experience, and this is where Ipswich are probably shopping for players that are getting bottom end Championship experience versus hopefully Ipswich can put their case forward as now being an ambitious League One outfit that will be right at the top of, if not the top, in terms of League One budget next season. So much like they did with James Norwood, who could have gone to lower end Championship, you say, well, you can go there and be a squad player, or you can come here and, we've got big plans for you to play every week, and that's hopefully where Ipswich can win those sort of battles.
You know what he reminds me of? They've got slightly different attributes, but can ultimately do the same thing for their team. Paul Cook had real success with Nick Powell at Wigan, playing number 10. He could also play wide a little bit as well, but creative, someone creative, playing off the cuff a little bit in one of those attacking roles. I think he might be someone that ticks a few of Paul Cook's boxes. But like you said, there's going to be some competition there. Who's next for you?
Josh Sims. He's at Southampton. His contract expires in the summer. He's been on loan at Doncaster this season, and he really caught my eye when Doncaster beat Ipswich 4-1. Earlier on in the season, he'd only just made the loan move there at that time. Played wide left, but I think he can play in any of those sort of attacking positions, bit behind the striker, primarily left-sided. 7 assists this season for Doncaster, and when he had some good players around him earlier in the season, before the mass exodus of players and managers and their season sort of collapsing. He looks good to me. He's only 24 still as well, so there's a chance to turn a profit on someone there potentially down the line, or certainly get a little bit more out of them. So Josh Sims.
Obviously, his loan's ending at Doncaster. Is he out of contract at Southampton as well?
I believe so.
Yeah, that feels like the kind of similar to Callum Connolly, maybe where it's time. It's time for both him and Connolly to go and find somewhere new to get going. Matthew Pennington will be in that same boat. I think he's finishing up his loan at Shrewsbury. We'll see him in a week or so. That's an age where you need to find a new home, isn't it? Rather than continually go out on loan from Premier League clubs.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's happening too much now, where Premier League clubs hand out 5-year contracts and then you just see them getting loaned out year after year. Pennington's a prime example, isn't it? And they quite often come on these loan spells and talk about wanting to find a permanent home and settle down. So yeah.
Okay. We've got two more each left. You got two more left? Have we done this in the right order?
I have one left. I've done 5.
Oh yeah. You served, didn't you? I've got two central midfielders left, and one of them is a player who very much could be on Paul Cook's shopping list this summer. It's one of his former players at Wigan. I think there's every chance that this man does indeed end up at Ipswich Town, and that's Lee Evans, 26, good age, central midfielder, Welshman. Does all the things that Paul Cook wants. I think we can gather enough now from hearing Cook shout from the touchline just how much he wants from those two central midfielders in front of the back four and behind the attacking three, and clearly having played that system for Cook for a few years, Evans is going to know exactly what's required of him there. So he's probably the one out of my list that I'd be most confident about genuinely happening, almost to the point of raising a little eyebrow if it maybe didn't. So we'll see.
Yeah, I steered clear of going down the sort of ex-Wigan route. Gavin Massey would certainly be another one that is out of contract at Wigan that can play in either of those wide roles that Cook worked with at Wigan before. So don't be surprised to see his name linked. But I didn't go with him. I've gone down a holding midfielder route because we know Paul Cook's going to want to play 4-2-3-1. We know he's going to want two of these sitting midfielders. And one of the people that caught my eye has been George Dobson, who quietly but effectively went about his business for Wimbledon. He's on loan from Sunderland, so he doesn't look necessarily like there's a future for him at Sunderland. He's out of contract in the summer. He's only 23 years old still. Just having a look at some of his stats, he averages 3 tackles per game, which is right up there in terms of League One stats. 2 interceptions per game, again, right up there in terms of the stats for League One. He's just probably, just intercepts, breaks up play, and then has got an eye for a forward pass. And I think he might be one that could fit into the Cook system quite well.
Yeah, my last one's a Sunderland player as well, who, whether or not this can happen or not, I don't know, because you'd think that Sunderland would want to keep him. But he's on the free agent list, so I thought I had to pick him. He's someone I've always liked the look of. I love his name, Max Power, who he's just a bit dynamic in the middle of midfield, got energy. Again, good age, 27. He's probably the least attainable on my list of 6 that I've got there, I'd have thought. But I wanted to chuck him in for various reasons, because I think that engine room, as well as the wide attacking areas, are going to be really, really important to what Cook does this summer. So I'm going to put Max Power on as my final nomination.
And again, worked with Cook at Wigan.
He did, didn't he? Yeah, until he left before Cook left, though, didn't he? He went off to Sunderland, but yeah, we'll see. That's the League One free agent list. What kind of market do you think Ipswich Town are shopping in this summer, Stu? It's hard to get a real gauge on this, maybe until we see a deal getting done, or maybe get a chance to speak to Mark Ashton once he's in the door and working as chief exec. But it's hard to really judge exactly the market that Ipswich Town are shopping in post takeover.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be. I don't think people should be suddenly thinking they're shopping. I've seen a few people when you put that list out, sort of going, "Well, hang on a minute, aren't our sites higher than this? We're shopping in Harrods now, loads of money." And the reality is, you're still a League One club that's just finished mid-table, and there is a project to sell here, and there is salary constraints in place, etc., etc. So I think there will still be a lot of frees and loans, and you can still get quality players within that market. That doesn't mean that you're being restricted to the bargain bin. The free agent market was very, very crowded last summer because of COVID. I think it will be again because of COVID. I mean, there's so many players in that list that didn't even make sort of the cut of the six there. I've got Dion Charles, who's scored 20 goals for Accrington up front this season. Solomon Otterbour's the Wigan winger who impressed against Ipswich. There is so many on that list. So I think, there is some quality to be picked up from that free agent market. I'm sure then players that have been released from championship clubs will come into it, and maybe we'll look at that list further down the line as well. And just good quality loans, hopefully getting the top quality loans for this division as well. And then who knows, maybe they'll change their recruitment and look to the foreign market as well. And they the people that we've talked to associated with this takeover have kind of hinted that they might broaden the search a little bit more and look abroad. And suddenly they're going to have a whole host of new contacts available, new people behind the recruitment team. So maybe Ipswich, who have kind of relied on the British market for so long, might just sort of dip their toe into the continental market as well.
And one deal we're thoroughly expecting to get done is the acquisition of 43-year-old centre forward Didier Drogba, Stu. That's one that we're expecting to get done, isn't it? Following our chat with Mr. Berke Bakai last week. You're smiling. Is it not happening? He said it was. He said it was happening. So what?
I think this was all said tongue in cheek, wasn't it? With our chat with Berke and also Brett Johnson on appearing on another podcast. Yeah, we'll get Didier in, and they're having a bit of fun with it. He's 43. He's not played football since 2018, apart from a few charity games here and there. We had a bit of fun with that because obviously Berke knows him and was the man that persuaded him against the odds to go and finish his career over at Phoenix Rising. Some lovely little stories there about, basically cold calling Didier Drogba, saying, "Hi, I'm Berke Bakai. I'm kind of associated with Galatasaray. Can we sell the project to you?" And they fly him out, and they're showing him a dusty field with a tumbleweed literally blowing across it, saying, "We're going to build a stadium here." And somehow they persuaded him to do it. And he went there and he was a sensation. And really that signing was what kind of sparked the rise of Phoenix Rising, really, who'd been struggling up until that point. So, but he's not coming to Ipswich, Andy, no.
Okay, we'll have to change what I had planned for the next bit of the podcast then, because I was going to talk about the attributes that he would bring to the team, but you've let me down. You've let me down there. But Berke Bakai, I'm sure a lot of people will have listened to this, to that chat already if you're listening to this. But if you haven't, go back and give it a listen. This is the first time we've done one of these since that talk with Berke. Seems like a cracking guy, doesn't he?
Yeah, really enjoyed that last was it Thursday night that we had a Zoom chat with Berke. Just had a big smile on our face throughout it all. You would be deeply cynical, of which I have become, and I think all fans have become over Ipswich, not be kind of swept along with the sort of energy and enthusiasm that sort of radiated from Berke. It was his football fandom and his passion for football really came across. I don't think you can fake that. Grew up in Turkey where football was everything. Big Galatasaray fan, was essentially a sort of Galatasaray ultra, despite the fact that his uncle was on the board there. He sort of shunned the prawn sandwich seats and got in with the flares and jumped around and was didn't want to go to school after they'd lost a derby match to Besiktas or Fenerbahce. And I just thought he came across really well. What did you? I know you did as well.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard not to smile, isn't it? Just to see him there with his Drogba shirt behind him in his office and his Ipswich Town scarf on him, sat in his chair, and just a big grin on his face. It's exciting to see. They know they're gonna ultimately be judged by what they produce on the pitch, rather than what they kind of say off it. They know that, but even still, it's so refreshing and exciting just to hear the passion with which the owners of the football club are approaching it. It's not a toy. They know that as well. It's all they're competitive guys. They want to win. That's how they've been successful in Phoenix, not just treating it as a plaything. They've wanted to put the best team they can on the field, and that's what they're going to do here. Every time we took them down an alleyway, sort of talking about Portman Road and giving that a facelift or commercial opportunities for the club, it always came back to, yep, we want to do all of those things, but first and foremost, it's about putting a team on the pitch that can get Ipswich out of League One as soon as possible, and that's bang on in my opinion, and hopefully they're able to do it.
Yeah, in the honeymoon period at the moment, and a very nice honeymoon period it is, as you say. It's so refreshing after 13 years of barely seeing or hearing from Marcus Evans to have seen and heard from all three of these new co-owners plus Michael O'Leary as well within the space of weeks, days and weeks already. So that's great. The thing I like about them is that there's a nice mix between not being scared to state their ambition and talk about what's behind this, but also they're very, very quick to say that they're doing this with complete humility and reverence for the history of the club. They know that this is not for the faint-hearted. They know this is a complete step up from essentially a starter club in America and a second-tier club in America to Ipswich Town. But they've got big plans and they get stuff done, and history already shows, the recent history shows that, I mean, they build stadiums in the space of like 50 days, which, you know, they built a temporary stadium in the space of 50 odd days. And they've not, you know, now they've built another stadium in time for this new. So I think these are people that once they get an idea, and that shone across with Burke, that once he kept talking about, I get this idea in my head and I won't let it go. And my friends tell me, you know, you're a guy, once you've decided something, you know, you just won't go away unless somebody kills you, you know, and that's the sort of determination that these guys have got. I mean, we've not heard from Mark Detmer yet, but he is a real estate global super player. You know, these are guys with serious resumes, and combined, that's what makes it exciting. This is not one guy like Marcus Evans coming in. Their collective power is, you know, they've got the serious money behind them with the pension fund, but what they're bringing to the party is connections. Not only bringing in further investment, but they just seem to sort of know people, and they've got this global network expanding across football, and that's what excites me.
This is what happens when someone goes into Dragon's Den with one of their little one of their inventions, or a bottle of Buckeye hot sauce or something like that, and you get the power of Duncan Bannatyne and some of the other ones who I've forgotten. What are they called? Who? Theo. Yeah, I'm not sure about Deborah Meaden. Who's the one that who's the one that was at Millwall? Theo, what's his name? Pathetis. Is he still on there?
I don't think he's on the Den anymore. No.
Well, anyway, this is drifting, but you know what I'm saying. You get the power of 3 dragons, but instead Ipswich have got 3 lions. You like it?
I do.
Yeah. It wasn't the smoothest of analogies. I got lost along the way, but ultimately, and everybody knew where I was going throughout the whole course of it. So job's a good one. Before we get on to Ipswich away at Swindon in a vital football match for both sides, be remiss of us at this point to not talk about the FA Youth Cup, which this Friday night at Portman Road, under the lights. Before we talk about the game, I'd also point you in the direction of our YouTube channel or our website, where you can find a film that Ross, who is not with us today, but Ross has made, looking at the Youth Cup success of 2005. It's got pretty much all of the all of the players on there talking about how they managed to beat the odds and sort of beat all of the Premier League superpowers and ultimately beat a Southampton team packed with future Premier League players to win the Youth Cup in 2005. I watched that on Sunday evening, and I thoroughly recommend that. So go hunt that one out. But onto the class of 2021, and they've got a big game themselves on Friday night. Sorry, and they've reached the business end of the competition, which is no mean feat, is it, for a third tier club as Ipswich are now, to be mixing it into the last 8 of the FA Youth Cup?
Yeah, I think when we're talking sort of academy levels, they're a second tier club really in that respect, because it's done on category 1, 2, 3, 4, and Ipswich are category 2. So they've had 2 upsets along the way. They've knocked Fulham, both Premier League and Category 1, out with an epic comeback win at Portman Road in one of the earlier rounds, and then they beat Middlesbrough 1-0 away with a late goal in the last round, who are also a Category 1 side. So they've bloodied a couple of noses along the way, a couple of upsets, and they're now into the quarterfinals where, through the luck of the draw, they face a fellow Category 2 side. Sheffield United are top end of the northern section of the division they play in. Ipswich are at the top end of their southern section, and this is going to be a big game. 5 p.m. kickoff at Portman Road, and if they were to win this one, then you're in the last 4 and you're up against one of the big boys, and that would be exciting.
Definitely would be. So follow that. You can follow that with us, and I'm sure there'll be a way of following it through the club as well. I think I saw that Sheffield United might be actually streaming that. Don't hold me to that, please. But I think I saw
Porker covering it for us, Andy. The big porker himself, Mike Bacon, who everyone enjoyed on the pod recently. He's going to be our man at the ground.
But we're letting him go to a game. Really?
Yeah, really?
Wow. Next, you'll be telling me that Ross is going to be taking pictures.
He is.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Goodness me. Well, the main event of the weekend is Ipswich away at Swindon. Swindon already relegated. Ipswich marooned in mid-table. Looking forward to that. Cracker.
Yeah, big time. These are the deadest of dead rubbers now, aren't they? These last few games. Swindon got relegated last weekend. They conceded 5 goals.
Will Grigg was on fire in that game because he scored 4 of them, I believe. He was on fire.
So Ipswich surely couldn't go another game without scoring to equal the club record run of 7 successive games from, what was that, 94, 95, the relegation season, the 9-0 against Man United. They can't, can they?
They can. I feel like a bit of an optimist sometimes with how I feel going into these games, certainly recently. I think they'll probably score. But
we say that, but then if you were to ask me where's this goal coming from and who's going to score it and how is it going to be created, I would really struggle to give you an answer.
Gwion Edwards' corner.
Mm-hmm.
Big centre back, head it in.
Okay.
From the byline. Yeah, no, I don't know, mate, to be completely honest. I don't know where he'll go with the team. I don't know what he'll do in various different positions on the pitch. And I don't know what the result will be. But I'm going to stick my neck out here and say I do think they'll score a goal. It's becoming a bit comical, really. 10 hours is just absolutely ridiculous. So I think they'll do it at Swindon, but it doesn't really change an awful lot, does it? It's not a triumphant achievement that we need to be celebrating.
No, there's really not a lot to be said about the first. This is an Ipswich Town podcast, and we're desperately trying to avoid all mention of last weekend's game and any kind of semblance of a proper preview for this one, because the season is dead, and it has been for a long time. And we've been playing this little silly charade where we've been, they could still do it, but deep down, I think there was a point where I nailed my colours to the mast a little while back, maybe slightly earlier than some, but even going back a further way, I've never had any kind of sense that this group has got it in them to get promoted this season. Certainly, even if they'd have scraped into the playoffs over 2 legs, that you wouldn't have seen them being able to outscore a team. But there you go. It's new era soon. I'm just, as we keep saying, I'm thankful that the takeover has happened, and that is because if that hadn't have happened, then these would be very depressive chats. But we're able to inject a bit of light into them because changes are coming.
I've been absolutely gagging for Ipswich Town to play Swindon Town for 10 years now. Since I started, a previous job of mine was covering Swindon for the newspaper there. Is that your nan's phone? Go on.
Yeah, house phone.
Go on, answer it. Answer it.
All right, I think she'll get it. It's all right, it's fine.
That's woken her up from her nap. Poor Nan. I've been absolutely gagging for this game to happen. But it's now happening in an empty stadium with one team already relegated and the other marooned in mid-table. It makes me quite sad.
The Andy
actually.
Warren derby that you wanted it to be.
No.
Camera. Those that are watching, if we put this out as a video, will see that next to your Ipswich shirt, you got your little Swindon shirt there as well. So,
yep, I slept in that bed the other night. I felt quite sad sleeping in the office again. Slightly better than sleeping in your car, but there you go.
You've been kicked out, mate. Is there anything you want to share with the listeners? Or
it's not really something I want to. It's not really something I want to talk about publicly, mate. So we'll keep that to ourselves for a little bit. Before we go, has your nan got anything to add? Do you want to just any other business?
No, she's on the phone, so I won't disturb her.
Okay. Have you got any? No other business from me either. So all we'll do now is do a bungling outro from me, which I'm always appalling at. Which essentially I'm going to ask you to listen to the podcast, now watch the podcast, subscribe to the podcast, and review the podcast, and then also come back and listen to the next podcast. Those are my requests to you, and we'll be back. We'll be back next week to maybe even talk about an Ipswich Town goal. But until then, wish you a good weekend. We'll see you soon.